What comes to mind when we think about the restaurant industry? Is it the tasty food? That crisp, cold beer? The laughter amongst friends? Or that extra shot you definitely did not need? Whatever it might be, chances are the restaurant industry plays a vital part in your social and hungry life. But of all those experiences, what do you make of those who prepare your cocktail or hamburger? What are your thoughts of them? At a time when worker retention has become a big issue for this industry, some say there's a brewing sense of stigma around what it means to be a hospitality worker. And not in a positive sense, mind you. According to a number of restaurant workers in Vancouver, there's a troubling question they often encounter. When are you going to get a real job? And it's that question that's caused some restaurant workers in Vancouver to rethink how they see their profession.
It's such an audacious question to even ask anybody. And it's something that's very personal, obviously, to a lot of us in the industry. But then it just goes into like assuming across the board that this isn't something that you have anticipated as going to be your career choice and something that you enjoy doing.
I sometimes feel troubled by the notion that this is a job that is a stepping stone to your real life.
The idea of getting asked that question on top of your own feelings, I can only imagine is quite debilitating if you get that question a lot, especially from family members or close friends. It's not an okay thing to ask. It's not a cool thing to ask.
Whilst that isn't a slanderous statement necessarily, they may or may not realize that that can be a little bit damaging. More so the question of like, oh, so what else do you do? Like as if there's an assumption that there's another job. I would politely remind the guest that the comical factor of them expecting someone to come and serve their table whilst coming out to our house, to our restaurant, to eat our food and drink our drinks, whilst asking the person who is currently at work whether that's a real job or not.
It can be and is often demeaning, and I mean, people can be terrible, and it's no longer fun anymore.
I feel very sad, but one thing the pandemic did, I don't know why it shamed the idea of being a server as a professional. It shamed the idea of being a server.
So, what can these experiences mean for people thinking about long-term careers in the industry? Dr. Moira Kachia is a psychology lecturer at the University of West London in the UK, and she says it can reshape people's perceptions of the sector.
Again, in terms of belonging, if we haven't really seen a positive model of what it's like to belong to a social group within a work setting, then it's likely that we will have preconceptions. We will have these preconceptions of what we expect it to be.
For an industry struggling to fill staffing gaps since the pandemic, those preconceptions can have lasting implications, including when it comes to retraining and hiring staff. Ian Tossinson is the BC Restaurants and Food Services Association's CEO.
It comes back to your original question is people don't go into it as I want to develop a career here, unless it's more restaurant corporate or restaurant administration management. They don't go into it with the fact that this is my long-term aspiration. And so I think that's where they sort of drift and they go, okay, I'm going to school, I have a degree, I'll go do something else. I think that's the biggest problem with our retention.
It's important to highlight that not all workers are deterred by this question. James Morrison, a server at Dachi and Annalena, says it's an industry he sees himself working in for a long time.
If you are in this industry for, finding that gratification from the way other people view you, then I don't think your heart's in the right place. I feel like it does actually have to come from within, and there's a reason that I am drawn to it, and that is the reason. I feel like you can find validation in making other people happy, and, placing yourself in that subservient role more or less, but if you're going to burn out, if that's where you're getting your value and your joys from the restaurant industry is from the way it comes back to you. I feel like it's an entirely internal process. It's the way that it makes you feel, not the way that other people reacting to you making them feel good. Like that is immaterial to me.
James's boss at Dachi, Miki Ellis, shares a similar sentiment.
I think that sort of question isn't always, the few times that I've heard it, it's not done intentionally, like to be intentionally mean or hurtful, but it doesn't feel good, and I don't think that that is a positive way to frame a question to any person. I don't think it's a reasonable question, but I also very much love what I do and believe that restaurants can be a really important part of a neighborhood or a community, and so I see value in it, and don't try and take note of that kind of negative.
And multiple organizations have endeavored to address some of these concerns, such as the Chef's Table Society with their Restaurant Culture Shift pilot project. Here is Shauna Gardam, Executive Director of Chef's Table Society, explaining what they hope to achieve with their initiative.
It's a 20-month project, but it's basically a toolkit for medium to small size businesses to create better cultures and workplaces so we retain more people.
For Dala Al-Chami, owner of popular Middle Eastern restaurants Super Baba and Mish Mish, having a broader lens towards this sector, in his eyes, will go a long way to establishing a more appropriate public perception.
I think it's a little bit detrimental to perpetuate the idea that the restaurant industry is not a career. We all love restaurants, we all go to restaurants, and I think we just need to do a better job of showing the people who work in those restaurants, who service your tables, who make your food, who own the restaurants, a little bit more, show them a little bit more that we value them and that they're important to us because we celebrate all our greatest moments at restaurants.
So while there are many in Vancouver's restaurant industry who say they are passionate about their work, questions about their profession persist and contribute to ongoing challenges around hiring and retaining staff. In the next episode, we'll learn more about what those issues are and the initiatives that have been set up to address them.
Thank you for joining us. Have a lovely evening.